We're hoping that everyone will get a chance to hear the candidates and still get home for the national debate, football game or baseball game, whichever it is you're going to be rushing home for. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Darke County, I'd like to thank you for attending the Candidates Forum tonight. Excuse me. This nonpartisan forum will focus on the races for 2nd District Court of Appeals and also the 80th House District. Following a brief introduction by non-contested candidates and some contested candidates present, the candidates for 2nd District Court of Appeals will begin the evening. And then we will conclude the evening with an explanation of the 2 state ballot issues, including the pros and cons of those issues. The League's purpose in sponsoring the Candidates Forum is to stimulate diplomatic, informative dialogue between the candidate and the voters. I would also like to let you know at this point we were intending on also featuring the 84th House District. Representative Jim Beakey is here and will have a chance to introduce himself at the beginning, but his opponent canceled at 3 o'clock this afternoon, stating he'd been fighting the flu all weekend and didn't feel it would serve him or anyone to be here. So because of IRS rules that involve what's considered in-kind donations, because we would be promoting one candidate over another, we cannot continue to have them in the forum. So I'm sorry that portion of the program has been canceled. So at this time I'd like to introduce the League members who are helping. We have the screeners at the back of the table who are equally divided between both political parties. We would encourage you to write questions down and a runner will pick up those questions, take them to the screener, screen them for grouping them for similarity, and then forward them here so we can ask them. There are ushers. Raise your hand, ushers. There's one over there and one over there. And the ushers will be taking your questions up. So please just wave if you have a question and they'll grab it. Please submit as many questions as you like, but only one question per page. So it makes it easier to screen and judge. Our timekeeper tonight is Judge Julie Monin, and she will be letting the candidates know when their time is up on an answer. Each candidate up here will be given 2 minutes for introductory remarks and then 1 minute for closing remarks. In between, they will be answering questions and will have 1 minute to answer, and each the opposing candidate may have 30 seconds to rebut. At this time, we would like to begin with the non-contested candidates. At this point, I would welcome Mr. Jim Beakey up, candidate for the 84th House District, and again, he was scheduled to be up here, but his opponent canceled it, so he has up to 2 minutes to introduce himself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the privilege. On January 11th, 2011, I was appointed state representative of the 77th House District to fill the unexpired term of former state representative Jim Zeringer, who was appointed by Governor Kasich to be the director of the Ohio Department of Agriculture. He has since been reassigned and is now the director of the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Since returning to the House, my efforts have been invested to help grow Ohio's economy by creating more jobs. The agenda that has been implemented is working. Ohio has gone from number 48 of 50 states in job creation to number 4. We are number 1 in the Midwest. Over 123,000 new private sector jobs have been created since last year, and more are on the way. This has been accomplished by balancing the budget that had an $8 billion hole without raising taxes. In fact, the state personal income tax has been reduced slightly, and January 1st, the estate tax will be eliminated. We are streamlining state agencies to make them more efficient without compromising their missions and developing a more consumer-friendly attitude in dealing with Ohio's residents. I currently serve on the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, plus state government elections and economic development small business. I continue to work hard on behalf of agriculture in the district as it is accountable for between 9 and 10% of food production in Ohio. More work needs to be done in January as it relates to building future successes in Ohio. I worked very hard on your behalf in Columbus. While I'm technically a freshman, the fact is that December 31st will mark 20 years as your state representative. I have a perfect attendance on the floor of the House the entire time. You see, my parents taught me you can't make decisions if you're not in the room. Thank you for the privilege of working for you in Columbus. I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beakey. At this time, I failed to remind you we would appreciate no applause or comments until the very end of the program, so thank you very much. At this point, we will introduce the non-contested Darke County candidates, and we'll start with Jason Aislinger, candidate for Darke County Common Pleas Court, the Probate Juvenile Division.
Hello, my name is Jason Aislinger. I'm the judge of the Darke County Probate Juvenile Court. I have served a little over a year and a half now in the court, and it has been a great privilege to serve as judge, and I'm looking forward to serving another term. There are a lot of opportunities in the court. We're doing a lot of new and interesting things, and so I look forward to reporting back to you on all of those developments as we proceed with the court. So I would appreciate your vote also on November 6th. Thank you very much.
The next candidate is Diane Delaplane, candidate for Darke County Commissioner.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to be here, for those in attendance, and for those who may view it at home. I am your Darke County Commissioner, and I wish to continue in that position for the next 4 years. We are a truly family-based community, and I want to thank my husband and the family and the supporters here. You are what makes Darke County. And because of that, we have our elected officials and our department heads who work together to utilize the resources and the funding that we have here in Darke County for the best interest of our citizens, the taxpayers. I would sincerely appreciate the support and vote of confidence to serve you again for another 4 years. Diane Delaplane, Darke County Commissioner. Thank you.
There are 2 commissioner spots, both non-contested. Mike Rhodes is the next candidate for Darke County Commissioner.
Hello, I'm Mike Rhodes. I've been your commissioner for the last 12 years, and I really appreciate the privilege of allowing me to do that, and I'm looking forward to serving you for another 4 years. Remember to vote. Thank you.
Next, we have R. Kelly Ormsby, the prosecuting attorney, who is also a non-contested candidate.
Good evening. I'd also like to thank the League for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I wanted to say that I appreciate very much the opportunity that I've had to serve the people of Darke County as your prosecuting attorney. I was appointed back in 2009, and I was elected to this position in 2010. I have a very good, hardworking staff that work hard every day to try to make sure that you get the legal representation that you deserve as citizens of this county. And I would very much appreciate your vote of support on November 6th. Thank you.
Now we have Cindy Pike, who is running for re-election to Darke County Clerk of Courts.
And I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on every year and for all the hard work they do throughout the year for the election process. I am running for re-election for my 5th term as Clerk of Courts. I have enjoyed serving you for the last 16 years, and I look forward to serving you for the next 4 and hopefully 4 more after that. We've got a lot of exciting things going on in the Clerk of Courts office. Technology is ever-changing, and we're implementing a lot of new technological processes in the office. But I look forward to your vote and support on November 6th, and the important thing is for everybody to get out and vote. Thank you for your support.
The next candidate is Linda Stackler for Darke County Recorder. And Linda is also non-contested.
Hi, I'm Linda Stockler, and I'm your Darke County Recorder, and I'm just finishing up my first term, and I would appreciate your vote in November. Thank you.
Scott Zumbrink, who is running for treasurer, re-election to treasurer as a non-contested candidate.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, League of Women Voters. My name is Scott Zumbrink, and I'm running for re-election as your Darke County Treasurer. I really appreciate you electing me as your county treasurer, and I enjoy serving as your county treasurer, and I enjoy serving the citizens of Darke County. Please vote on November 6th, and I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
And our last Darke County candidate tonight is Jim Serber, candidate for Darke County Engineer for re-election.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you again to the League of Women Voters also. It has been a high privilege and an honor to serve as your county engineer for the past 3.5 decades. I can only say that during that whole time we have tried to maximize the use of all your tax dollars, and I hope that the quality of our county roads and bridges bear that out. I would appreciate your vote of support on November the 6th to continue in the office of county engineer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to all the non-contested Darke County candidates that attended tonight. We appreciate that. And before we begin with the 2nd District Court of Appeals, I just wanted to announce from the Darke County Board of Election their early voting hours. From now through Thursday, November 1st, they are from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Friday, November 2nd, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, November 3rd, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Sunday, November 4th, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And Monday, November 5th, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tuesday, Election Day, November 6th, you vote at your precinct. And if you would like to see a sample ballot for your precinct, go to www.electionsonthe.net and just go to Darke County and to your precinct, and you'll be able to see a sample ballot. And that information is there so viewers can see it as well. This program is being videotaped, thanks to Nick Schmidt from Schmidt Videography, and to Todd Kaiser of Bach to Rock for the sound system. It is the intent to put it on Greenville Public Access TV. They are waiting on a part, and so we cannot say, as we usually do, when it will be broadcast, so you'll just have to look online for that. But it will be put on YouTube later this week, and you'll be able to view the program in its entirety. Again, individuals are encouraged to submit questions, just one question per page, please. At this point, we'll begin with our 2-minute introductions of our 2nd District Court of Appeals candidates. We have Carly Ingram and Jeff Wellbaum, and we'll start with Carly Ingram for the 2-minute introduction.
Thank you. Do you want me to stay here? Or?
Stay right there.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Carly Ingram, and I'm running for the 2nd District Court of Appeals, an open seat. I want to be your next judge, but of course that's not enough. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to ask you to vote for me and tell you why I'm the more qualified candidate. I have been a lawyer in Montgomery County for 32 years in the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office. My credentials are excellent. I've been doing appellate work since 1985. Through that time, I've done hundreds and hundreds of appeals. And when I say I mean I've torn those cases up, read everything there is to read, and written briefs that very often the Court of Appeals use as their model for writing. It's almost sometimes like ghost writing the brief, using that as the model. I've argued numerous times in the Supreme Court of Ohio, and I've argued and won a case in the United States Supreme Court. Don't just take my word for it, though. I'm going to ask you to go to my website and look at my endorsements. The Miami Valley trial lawyers endorsed me, and I'd also like you to look at the Dayton Bar Association judicial poll, which rated me across the board more qualified than my opponent. I've got the experience and the knowledge to make an excellent appellate judge. I also am a practitioner, and I have the drive that comes from dealing with victims and witnesses and people whose lives are affected by the court's decisions to make sure that the law is applied fairly to all. I'm going to ask you for your vote. I'm Carly Ingram. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Jeff Wellbaum.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jeff Wellbaum. I'm running for the 2nd District Court of Appeals. This is a very short time period, so I'd like for you to look at my website at jeffwellbaum.com for more information. I'm from Troy, Ohio. I graduated from Troy High School. I went to Defiance College and Ohio Northern Law School. I've been a judge. I was a judge for 16 years. I was a county prosecutor. I was a practicing lawyer, a public defender, and a special assistant U.S. attorney in Dayton prosecuting federal narcotics charges. I have a very diverse background in all the subject matters that the Court of Appeals addresses, whether it be civil, criminal, domestic relations, probate, juvenile, any kind of law that the Court of Appeals would review, I have a lot of experience in. I also have a lot of appellate experience. I had my first argument before the 2nd District Court of Appeals when I was in law school. I was the county prosecutor. I prosecuted many appeals in the 2nd District Court of Appeals and argued before the Ohio Supreme Court. So I am the total package of what you should be looking for a Court of Appeals judge. Judicial experience, diverse experience, and appellate experience. I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ingram. And now we'll begin with questions, and we'll rotate who starts with them. So we'll start this question with Mr. Wellbaum. What are your goals in regard to the future of your court?
The goals that I have in the future of the 2nd District Court of Appeals is to add a new dynamic to that court. I think with my unique experience as a common police court judge for 16 years, as a county prosecutor, public defender, and also a practicing attorney, I have a unique blend of talent and experience to bring before the court. I want to improve the court. I want to be the new ingredient to the court to make the court better. And I think that, along with my appellate experience, will enhance the court, and that's my goal.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ingram, same question. What are your goals in regard to the future of your court?
Well, I've been practicing in front of this court for a long time, and I can say that although I don't always agree with the decisions of the court, I respect the court, and I think the court has a very high level of judicial knowledge, and their decisions are well reasoned, and they're collegial. They're respectful to each other, and they're respectful to attorneys who come before them. I would hope to continue in that tradition of bringing excellent legal scholarship, so that the citizens can have a court that they can rely on, that they can trust, that they deserve. So my goal would be to continue the tradition that the court itself has begun. I will say, too, that no matter what happens in November, there will be 3 of the 5 judges will be trial lawyers. Putting another trial lawyer on that panel, I don't think brings the diversity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any responses? Okay. The next question, we'll start with you, Ms. Ingram. Briefly describe the responsibilities of an appellate judge and what type of cases come before you on a regular basis.
The kind of cases that come before the court arise from every kind of legal proceeding there are in the 6 counties, from divorces to child custody to criminal cases, to motions to suppress that the prosecutor lost, to probate matters. If you have a leaky basement and have to sue a contractor, these are the kinds of cases. The Court of Appeals is so important because you have a right whenever you go to court, whether you want to be there because you filed suit or you don't want to be there because you've been sued or charged. If you don't believe you've been treated fairly, then you have a right to an appeal. So that's what those judges are looking at. They're tearing up the record in that case to make sure that the parties were treated fairly under the law, and that's what I'd continue to do.
Would you like to add to that?
I would agree with a lot of what Ms. Ingram said. The diversity of cases is the challenge of the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals has reviewing and responsibility of 56 trial judges within the 6-county area. As a common police court judge and a practicing attorney and a prosecuting attorney, I handled all the different areas that are reviewed by the 2nd District Court of Appeals. Criminal, civil, domestic, equity, administrative law appeals. I have experience in all of these areas, and that's what the court does, and that's what I've done, and that's why I think that I can serve the citizens better than anyone else.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wellbaum, you'll start with this question. In your opinion and experience, what is the area where the toughest decisions are required?
I would have to say that the toughest decisions as a judge are when you have a case that's close on the law, with an ambiguous law, a law that perhaps has been crafted by various interest groups and may even conflict with another law that was crafted by a compromise between different political parties and different interest groups. Legislation that is vague and ambiguous and conflicting with other laws is very difficult to wade through and very troublesome to try to ascertain what it is the legislature intended. So those are the cases as a legal practitioner that are toughest for the judge.
Thank you.
I agree that those cases where the statutes as written or the case law is ambiguous is difficult, but that's really the bread and butter of what an appellate court judge does. From a difficulty standpoint, I think as a prosecutor, I think from a difficulty standpoint, what is very difficult is dealing with criminal cases where someone has gone away for a long time. We know that, as a prosecutor, that person may well have richly earned that conviction, but that no matter what happens, somebody's heartbroken. There's a child or a mother. What's very important as a prosecutor, and I think as an appellate judge, is to make sure in those cases that the law was applied fairly so that we can be confident, even when the result is unfortunate and makes people unhappy, that's the right result under the law, that people were treated fairly and the law was applied fairly. Thanks.
We'll start with you this time, Ms. Ingram. How could you improve the function of the court?
I think some of the decisions are a little slow, and I tend to get things done, so I think that would be something. But I've got to say that as a practitioner in front of that court for years and years, I don't believe that, systemically, that there's a need for improvement. I do believe, though, that the justice system works best when more voices are heard. And right now, I think the voice this court needs is mine. I'm a practitioner. I understand appellate law I've been doing it forever, and frankly, the rules are different in appellate law than they are as a trial judge. I guess one thing I want to say, though, is the people in these 6 counties are lucky because they have what I'd say are 2 qualified candidates. So whatever happens, I just want you to understand, I think that the court itself is worthy of your respect and trust, and that if elected, my goal would be, and my commitment would be, to uphold that, keep it collegial and fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wellbaum, how would you improve the function of the court?
I think I would improve the function of the court by adding a new dynamic to the court as far as an ingredient. We have 4 very good judges on the Court of Appeals. We have 1 opening. It's an open seat that we're running for. I think that the person that fills that seat needs to be a person who has great experience in the areas that the court deals with, the courts that are reviewed. I think that it's important that the person come in with a thorough knowledge of all areas of law that the court reviews, such as I've gained on the Common Pleas Court and my time as a visiting juvenile probate judge, as a practicing lawyer, as a public defender. Right now I'm chief of the criminal justice section for your Attorney General, Mike DeWine. I've gained a lot of experience in that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, start with you this time, Mr. Wellbaum. Do you feel the budget for the courts needs to be increased?
No, I don't think it needs to be increased. I know there's been some cutbacks. All the courts are cutting back. The Supreme Court's cutting back its budget. They're using less visiting judges than they have in the past. I know that's put some stress on the courts, but I think that the courts are operating efficiently and effectively, and I don't think there needs to be any addition to the budget.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, that's an easy question then. We have a quick question, and it's for you, Ms. Ingram, to start with. Is it against the law to put campaign signs on government property?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I never thought to look at that because I don't intend to put any on government property.
Okay.
I did take 2 down, though, this morning that I found out that my nephew put up, but yeah.
All right.
I don't disagree with that.
All right, so that
It's illegal.
is done.
No, it's illegal. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
illegal. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, okay. All right, Mr. Wellbaum, you start with this one. If we don't like the result in your court, what do we do after that?
Well, at the Second District Court of Appeals, 90% of the time, or roughly 90% of the time, that's the end of the line. That's the last appeals to the Second District Court of Appeals, unless you can get into a higher court, such as the Ohio Supreme Court, for some reason, or a federal court. But 90% of the time, that's what makes the Second District Court so important, is because most of the time that's the end of the line for a litigant. And it's very difficult to get into the Ohio Supreme Court, and it's very difficult to get in the United States Supreme Court. So it's an important court. Second District matters.
Any response to that?
Well, there's a couple ways, like right after the decision comes out, a person can go back to the court and say, look, I think you forgot this, or you didn't consider this. So you can ask them to reconsider. That's not successful very often, but sometimes, and when it really the court is open to that. And I would continue. I would never be so sure that I wouldn't reconsider if it were warranted. But I agree. That's why this court is so important, because in most cases, that's your last chance for review, and that's why you deserve a court that's made up of judges who are knowledgeable, who are willing to put in the effort to get it right, and who have the drive to make sure that the law was correctly applied, fairly applied the first time around. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start this question with Ms. Ingram. It's 2 parts. Do you think that you would be influenced if you ran into a former client in a case before you, and can you recuse yourself if there is a conflict?
Judges can recuse themselves. I did not have a great deal of actual clients because I was a prosecutor. My clients, as I always said, were the citizens of the state of Ohio. So running into someone on the opposite side of a case, I am aware, however, my husband works in a law firm. I couldn't participate in a case where his firm was involved, that there are possibilities, just because I practiced for 32 years in Montgomery County, that there may be associations that may cause me to have to recuse myself from a particular case. And I will say that if elected, I can't possibly sit on any criminal cases arising out of my office, although they can work around that by scheduling a full docket of cases that don't have anything to do with my office for at least until the cases that I have anything to do with are done.
Thank you. Mr. Wellbaum, would you like me to repeat the question?
All judges have some conflicts at some point. For Ms. Ingram, it would be perhaps the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office might raise some conflicts. With me, it might be the Ohio Attorney General's Office, because I'm a section chief of the Criminal Justice Section of the Ohio Attorney General. So every judge is faced with that dilemma. I don't have a lot of clients running around out there because I haven't practiced law in a while, because I was a common police court judge for 16 years. So it's going to happen. It happens to all judges, and when that happens, you recuse yourself, and it's a very simple process. We need to be fair and also show the public that we're being fair.
Well, since I am out of questions at this point, I think we'll begin the 1-minute closing statements. A chance for you to say anything that wasn't asked that you want to get in. And Mr. Wellbaum, we start with you on that.
Okay. Yeah, and I would indicate that the Montgomery County Bar Association did rate Carla Ingram higher, but the Miami County Bar Association rated me higher. They found that I was well qualified by a margin of 59 to 15, and there was a preference of me being elected by a margin of 54 to 10. So we both have something to offer in that regard. My main point is that I have judicial experience and I have diversity of experience, which includes appellate experience. And that is the difference between me and my opponent. And that's why I think I deserve your vote. And that's why I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wellbaum. Ms. Ingram.
Thanks again for giving me this opportunity to come and talk to you. I think I've explained, that what drives me is making sure that everyone is treated fairly. What I bring to that, and that, of course, that's not enough. That's not enough. What I bring to that is years and years of doing appellate work, where my job was to look at those cases and take them apart. My civil experience is not as great as many others, but I will tell you this: it's not. I do have civil experience, and those cases that I have handled have been among the most difficult and complex kind of cases that occur under the law. And if I can figure out, research, analyze, and brief a death penalty case with all of those complicated constitutional issues, I can certainly sit on a panel in a civil case. Thank you. I'm going to ask you for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, let's give our candidates a round of applause for their participation. And thank you both for coming and attending. You're welcome to stay, or at this point we're going to be inviting the candidates from the 80th House District, Representative Dick Adams, who serves presently, and his challenger, Dave Fisher. So if you would please come up here, and we're going to get we'll just take a break. Everyone can stand and stretch their legs, and we'll get you some fresh water. We're going to you're over here to the left, alphabetical. Can I ask
Mr. Adams, how are you, sir? Okay. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a reminder to those in attendance, please write your questions down for our state representatives, candidates, and signal a runner so that they can pick them up for you. As a reminder, while we're waiting to get started, the Darke County Board of Elections wanted everyone to know about the voting hours, especially with the change in the recent decision. Now through Thursday, November 1st, you can vote at the Board of Elections from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Friday, November 2nd, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, November 3rd, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Sunday, November 4th, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., and Monday, November 5th, at the Board of Elections from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. On Election Day, then you would vote at your precinct. And again, for a sample ballot, go to www.electionsonthe.net. So at this time, we'll begin our part of the forum with the 84th did I say that right? The 80th House District, excuse me. And we'll begin with Mr. Adams with his 2-minute introduction.
Good evening. I am Richard Adams, and I am currently your state representative for the 79th District, but with the redistricting, I now no longer will have Richland Township, but I will have Harrison and Liberty Townships added in Darke County, and will continue to have all of Miami County. It's been renumbered as the 80th District. Not only am I appreciative of the League of Women Voters coordinating, conducting this meeting, I also want to express appreciation to all of you who are attending this evening. I am acquainted with many of you, but for those of you who I have not met, I want to say to you that I was born on a dairy farm, reared on a dairy farm. That was probably a major reason I decided to go to college, because if you haven't had the experience of milking cows in the morning when it's cold, you can't fully appreciate how I happened to go to college. Went to The Ohio State University, 3 degrees there. For a time I taught at the high school level, the adult education level, taught at the collegiate level, and spent some time at Clark State Community College, left there as vice president, went to Miami County, where I was superintendent of the Upper Valley Joint Vocational School. After completing that work, I served 2 terms as county commissioner over in Miami County. Then I served 6 years on the Board of Elections, and this is my 4th year that I'm completing as your state representative. Running for re-election primarily because what needs to be done has not been completed. And although we have made a lot of progress, as you have heard Representative Beakey say a bit earlier, we still have more work to do, more ideas to implement, and I'm looking forward to doing that on your behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Fisher, your 2-minute introduction.
I also, too, like to thank the League of Women Voters and all of you for coming out here this evening. My name's Dave Fisher. I'm candidate for the 80th House District. I'm a Bethel Township resident in Miami County. Been out there a lot of years. My grandparents was out there for a lot of years also. Born, bred, raised in Miami County. I understand what the middle class is going through today, because I am part of the middle class. Every day I swing my legs out of bed, go to work. I work for a commercial heating and air conditioning supply house. I have 9 people underneath me that we do a very good job, and we serve the community in Dayton and the surrounding areas. why I'm running, my grandmother told me, said, David, and I always knew when she said David, I had to pay attention. But she said, you need to be the solution to the problem, not the problem to the solution. And I've taken that to heart. And over the years, even though I've never been an elected official, I've worked extensively with the Bethel Township community. I chaired our land use plan, which we completely relooked at the way things were happening in southern Miami County, Bethel Township. There was a lot of pressures from Huber Heights, and we decided as a community, and the township trustees tapped me as the chair of this land use plan committee. I've also helped with Bethel High School with numerous levies with helping the schools get some needed funding that seems like the state has decided to cut. And we had some issues with the Board of Elections 11 years ago, and I decided to step up and stand up being the problem. I helped the Board of Elections, and I've also worked for the Board of Elections as a rover. Unfortunately, I can't do it now because I'm running for office. So, over the years, I've been extremely involved with the community, with Miami County, as a business owner. And, I'm looking forward to your questions. And I think it'll be a very good forum this evening. I think you'll probably get a lot out of it. And I'm also asking for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay, we'll begin with the questions. And again, if you have any questions, please submit them to the runners. The first question goes to Mr. Fisher. As our representative, how do you plan to listen to the electorate on issues?
I think the major problem with any government is when our elected officials get in there and then they just decide not to listen to the community. What I plan on doing is getting focus groups throughout the district and basically want to get with those people and talk and find out what's going on in southern Darke County, what's going on in northern Miami County. I think that's the only way that we're going to make government work. I've heard a lot of people say that they dislike government. And, government is all of you. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, if you don't like government, you are the government. You elect Mr. Adams and myself to positions to speak for you. And the only way we're going to solve this problem is for me to get out into the community and talk to you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. As a representative, how do you plan to listen to the electorate on issues?
Well, I've done more than plan, Eileen. I've been actively involved in listening. I've made it a practice to spend time in an enterprise each week, some profit, some nonprofit, some public. And I go there to listen to those individuals and those people that they're associated with in terms of how they view what's happening in Columbus, how it's affecting them, and consequently how they would like to see changes made. And it's not always adding more laws. Sometimes it's a matter of undoing some things that have been done in Columbus. I think that we have throughout Miami and Darke counties good elected officials. That may well be evidenced by the degree to which so many of them are not in a contested race. Good government is exactly what people deserve, and the fact that you're here this evening listening to candidates, thinking about issues, that's indicative of what you're doing to promote good government.
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Adams is, just last year we had Senate Bill 5 and Issue 2. Our former county chair, Mr. Adams, had a conversation with him and told him that he really thought that Issue 2, Senate Bill 5, would go down, or will pass, in Miami County 75-25. It not only went down in a very marginal number, but it also went down in Darke County. Now, he's telling us he's listening to the people. I'm not buying that at all. When it went down in both counties, it was close, but still, 75-25. I find that hard to believe, sir.
As a reminder, you each have 30-second rebuttals.
Well, maybe I can help you with how to understand that. First of all, your figures are not accurate. It did fail in Miami County by 13 votes. However, in that portion of what is now the 79th district, it actually passed by 86 votes. So overall, in District 79, Senate Bill 5 was upheld by a vote of 73. So consequently, indeed, it did pass, not by much, but it did pass, and I think the degree to which it passed was indicative of the contacts that I'd had with the people of the 79th District.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. And this one we start with Mr. Adams. What are your plans for improving our state legislature?
In 2 minutes. Or do I have a minute? Only a minute. Well, I want to tell you there's some things there's a lot of things we can do, and I'll be glad to talk further about this. But one of the things that we need to continue doing is the creation of jobs. You heard Representative Beakey talk about an $8 billion deficit, and we must pass the budget. Unlike the federal government, we must constitutionally have a balanced budget. So to balance that budget, it was necessary for us to spend a lot of time not only on balancing it, but also doing those things that will help us to generate more tax revenue at existing rates, not raising taxes, existing rates. That means more jobs, more good jobs. We worked hard on that. As Jim Beakey indicated, we are the 4th highest in the nation, and we're the #1 job creator in the Midwest. So we've made some progress.
Thank you. Mr. Fisher, your plans for improving our state legislature?
I was kind of hoping to get something from Mr. Adams on that, but he didn't really answer the question. I think the legislation is like anything. At times it gets caught up in some dogma, and that's unfortunate. There's things that probably should be brought forth that are not other ideas from the opposite side of the aisle. That's one thing that I really want to look at when I'm elected to this position is we have to work. We have to just get away from the partisanship that's going on, not only here in Columbus, but all over. I've had a lot of great conversations with Republicans and Democrats and Libertarians, and if we can sit down and just talk, we can get a lot of things done. But it seems like there is a great divide here, and we need to cut through it. And I promise I'm going to cut through that. I'm going to Columbus to do a job, and that's to serve the people of the 80th House District.
Next question. Start, Mr. Fisher. How much of Ohio's improved economy can be attributed to the auto rescue?
Oh, it's a lot. We have a tendency to look at GM and Chrysler as the sole beneficiary of the auto rescue. I've talked with people from Toyota and Honda. They were extremely concerned that if GM and Chrysler would go bankrupt, is the down supply companies, the non-union shops that supply parts and pieces not only to GM but Honda and Chrysler. Those companies were going to struggle, and the Honda and the Toyota people were really concerned that these companies were going to go out of business because they were afraid that they were not going to be able to. When it comes right down to it, the auto rescue has saved a lot of jobs in the state of Ohio, and you can thank Sherrod Brown and Barack Obama for that. They went to bat for the auto industry, and it's huge in the state of Ohio.
Mr. Adams?
Eileen, I didn't hear the question. Would you
How
repeat
much
it?
of Ohio's improved economy can be attributed to the auto rescue?
I think any of the areas of industry and business that have been improved over the past 3 years certainly are going to contribute in a positive way. The automobile industry gets a lot of publicity, but there's been a lot of other things that have occurred that have enabled us to do better. And although I have a statewide perspective, I'm also cognizant of the degree to which agriculture is so important in Darke County and Miami County. Consequently, we need to make sure that agriculture continues to be a strong industry if we're going to have our friends and neighbors here having jobs. Honda certainly is a major area. I spent today 2 hours with a manufacturer in the district. They are adding facilities, equipment, and employees. They're in the automobile industry, and they are benefiting from that. And they're doing not only more work here. Next time I have a chance to talk, I'll tell you what else they're doing.
Sorry, the stop sign came up.
I just would like to ask Mr. Adams, so were you for the bailout, sir, or against the bailout?
I think the bailout is somewhat of a negative term. I think what we're talking about is the degree to which government, as a partner with business and industry, provided some funds. This is what happened today. $2.3 million of state funds for a local manufacturer to begin manufacturing a product for the automobile industry that frankly is made now in Japan. And with Ohio's help, he's able to now have the funds. You're awful quick, Judge, with that stop sign.
The rebut's just 30 seconds,
Okay.
sorry. Let's see, Mr. Fisher started that answer. So,
Yes.
Mr. Adams, we'll start with you on this one. Another follow-up question. Do you consider companies using temporary employees in the figure for economic improvement?
Well, I think that we need to think in terms of good jobs that represent economic improvement, full-time jobs, but at the same time, I know a lot of people are now in a position where they have maybe 2 part-time jobs as they're trying to work their way back into a full-time job. Some of that, of course, necessitates additional training, additional experience. Just getting a positive job record as a part of their resume in order for them to have that full-time job and be able to pursue the kind of work that results in a salary that enables them and their family to have the kind of quality of life that all Ohioans deserve.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, do you consider companies using temporary employees in the figure for economic improvements?
No, I don't, because most of those people that are going through a temp service are underemployed. We definitely need to look at education in the state of Ohio. Right now, with the company I work for, I'm looking for qualified people, and they're hard to find. In the heating, air conditioning, refrigeration business, it's become very technical. It's become very green. A lot of the companies, A.O. Smith, I can go down to Copeland, and some of the others have really moved their technology forward to green type technologies. And unfortunately, even in the field when I first got into it way back in the early 80s, it was pretty much a contactor and a capacitor, and you were out the door when you fixed someone's equipment. Now this has gotten to the point where it is high tech jobs, and we're having a hard time finding qualified people. Temp service is a help. It's not a solution by any means.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yes, at present time we have about 80,000 job openings. 80,000 job openings which cannot be filled because we do not have people with the right kind of skills. That's an area where government can be very helpful. I've had a lot of experience with the Joint Vocational School. I was on the Board of Trustees at Edison Community College for 18 years. We can provide the kind of skill training, related technology along with it, that will enable those 80,000 jobs in Ohio to be filled. We're working towards that. I served on the House of Representatives Manpower Development Task Force to do just that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next couple of questions which deal with the environment. Starting with Mr. Fisher, what do you think about the $2 million that was spent in cleaning up algae from Lake St. Mary's that did not work? What would you do in helping to clean up the lake?
Well, many years ago, the people around Grand Lake St. Mary's was told that this was going to be an issue. And you can look to Indian Lake as a prime example. The Indian Lake Watershed Group up there started 25 years ago. My numbers may be a little off on that, but a long time ago. And they got with the farmers in the local community around and said, look, we've got to change our ways. The day of the moldboard plow is gone. And looking at helping with the watershed. The money spent up in St. Mary's was, I don't know if it was actually put to good use or not, but something had to be done up there. Those people, business owners, they were dying up there because of what was going on the Grand Lake. And it's something that it's going to take some time. I think there needs to be more funding up there, and we need to just try to find the right solution.
Mr. Adams, what do you think about the $2 million that was spent in cleaning up algae from Lake St. Mary's that did not work? What would you do in helping to clean up the lake?
Well, it did have some positive and beneficial results from it. I'm tempted to say it's a good start, but $2 million is a lot of money, too. And more money has been invested to correct that problem. The state of Ohio has a vested interest, not only from the standpoint of the degree to which the tourism industry is a big part of that particular area, and it's important to have a lake that people can swim in and boat and fish. So all of us have reasons for wanting that particular lake to be the kind of lake that we can all enjoy. I have a number of constituents that I've worked with who have shared with me information because they have property at Grand Lake. And so I'm convinced that the technology to do that, to correct it, is something that we'll be able to apply so that we can have a restoration of that lake for utilization.
Mr. Adams, the next question, we'll start with you. Wastewater from fracking has been reportedly coming into Ohio from other states. Uranium and other toxins have been reported as contained in the water. What is your stand on this wastewater, and are you aware of any House bills related to this?
I'm opposed to having the wastewater from Pennsylvania, for example, trucked into Ohio and injected into wells. I think it can be done, and the legislature is looking at this along with the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Agriculture, so that we can be sure that as the material emanating from the fracking of shale for the purpose of harvesting oil and gas, that material injected back into these wells is done in a way that's economically safe, that will not compromise the area in which it is deposited.
Okay. And the same question for you, Mr. Fisher. Wastewater from fracking has been reportedly coming into Ohio from other states. Uranium and other toxins have been reported as contained in the water. What is your stand on this wastewater, and are you aware of any House bills related to this?
First off, I think everybody in this room knows a few years ago there was a CO2 sequestration going on right here in Darke County. Now they want to pump this fracking material into the groundwater. You have to ask yourself, and I know a lot of people in this room was on board stopping Mattel of doing that. It's a bad idea. There is a House bill that has been introduced that they were not allowed to tell, and I'm going to try to put this in a synopsis real quick. They were not allowed to tell what materials was in this fracking solution for doctors and anybody that has any kind of a lawsuit. So there is a bill on the floor for health reasons of this. So, again, ask yourself, would you want this material pumped in your ground in Darke County or even Miami County? I say no. And I think we really need to look at, was Mr. Adams on board when this whole sequestration thing came about?
Yes, when the sequestration problem was occurring in Darke County, I attended a number of meetings and was supportive of the activity to make sure that did not happen. And we need to come back to the question. It talks about material coming from out of state, that we may not know exactly what the chemical content is. I'm talking that should not occur. We should not be the dumping site for Pennsylvania's fracking material. Secondly, the reason for the bill that has been referenced deals...
I'll let him finish.
Okay.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
That particular bill was done because of some concerns about the degree to which companies would have information exposed that would compromise their patent or copyright advantage. Now, there is a concern, of course, that if there would be a need for a medical person to have access to that information, that they should know exactly what treatment they might be providing if that would happen.
May I?
Yes,
Please.
you can rebut as well.
He said in the first part of his statement that he was okay with it if it was safe. Now he's telling us, just in a few seconds, now he's telling us that he's not okay with it coming in from out of state. I'm here to tell you I'm not okay with it at all.
Well, if I might,
30 seconds, yes.
you know, Mr. Fisher, I don't need you to tell people what I'm thinking or what I'm saying. I can take care of that myself. As we look at the degree to which there is a tremendous amount of oil and gas to be harvested, and with what has occurred in other states where they were able to do this in an environmentally friendly way that did not compromise the environment, we need to have the kind of technology in Ohio so that that can be done to the degree that it is beneficial, not only in terms of providing oil and gas, but in terms of the number of jobs it represents. It can be done. It has to be done well before we'll support it.
Thank you. Okay, well,
It's okay.
we'll move on to the next question, starting this one with Mr. Fisher. Education is very important to improving Ohio's economy. Do you support cutting school funding, and what are your reasons? If so, what are your reasons?
Cutting school funding?
Do you support cutting school funding?
Not at all. Okay, folks, about 18 years ago, the Duralf decision came down. School funding was deemed unconstitutional. Over the last 12 years, we've had a state representative was on the state school board, and now we've got a gentleman that's been on, our representative sitting next to me, was a superintendent, was with the JVS, and I have seen no bill coming forth to solve school funding. Now, Mr. Adams, in one of his flyers, has said that he is trying to solve the school funding issue. I would like to know what bill he's put forth, or what bill he's co-sponsoring, or what bill he might be working with the Senate. There is nothing coming out of this. You know, they're in contempt of court. He's wearing a pinstripe suit. He should be wearing a pinstripe suit, because if it was any of us out here, we would all be in jail. And I propose that I will have a school funding bill within 60 days after I take office.
Mr. Adams, same question. Education is very important to improving Ohio's economy. Do you support cutting school funding, and what are your reasons?
No, I don't support cutting school funding. I've been in education for some 32 years and have 3 degrees in education, so I know education. And I can say to you that the first 2 years I served in the legislature, Governor Strickland had a proposal to solve the school funding problem in terms of what he called the evidence-based model. Now, there were 2 things wrong with the evidence-based model. Number one, there were a lot of educators that didn't believe that it would work, primarily because it was a matter of if you have these ingredients, then the outcome will be okay. There's a lot of people who believe that's not the case. Secondly, there was absolutely no money from Governor Strickland's administration to implement this. So as a result, evidence-based model, even though it never really got started. We've had, during the past year, a transition model, which basically was going back to a previous model that had been modified somewhat. It's just not enough time to talk about school funding in a minute.
No, it's a big topic. You may respond,
Yeah.
Mr. Fisher.
You know, he has cut school funding in the state of Ohio. He's cut local government funding in the state of Ohio. He went right along with Governor Kasich on this crash and burn of the state and trying to, you know, they balanced the budget. They balanced the budget very well. But when you take a look at what's going on in all of the issues that have come before for school funding in the area, it's a travesty. Schools are hurting. Schools need money.
Thank you.
Well, I would react to that by saying that when we had some $8 billion spent by the Strickland administration from the federal government that was not going to be duplicated in the current budget, when you have a constitutional requirement to balance the budget, when you also have every fund depleted, the Strickland administration took $1.1 billion in the emergency fund and spent it all but 89 cents. it was necessary for us to balance the budget, and I have said many times, school districts, local government were partners in helping the state to do that. Now it's time to restore some of those funds.
Thank you. We have another education-related question, which will start with Mr. Adams. It says, I see where Mr. Fisher says you voted against health and nutrition standards for schools. Can you please comment?
Yes, we had a series of health and nutritional requirements for schools from the federal government, which then was a matter for the General Assembly to take a look at, and there was a vote on that, and I did vote against it, and I'll tell you exactly why. I believe the schools of Darke County are fully capable of determining what the menu is going to be and what they're going to be serving our students. We are now in a situation with too much federal control over what the menu is going to be in lunchrooms. And whether or not we're going to be able to move away from that and return that authority back to the boards of education that we elect and the educators that they employ remains to be seen. But it's necessary for local control.
Mr. Fisher, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I agree with local control, but I also think that there needs to be some kind of guidelines there. It has been proven in any kind of study that a child learns when he or she is fed and is not hungry. And nutrition, in a lot of cases today, a lot of these kids in not only in the 80th district, but elsewhere, some of their best nutrition is coming from the schools. So it's something that we really need to look at because, again, statistics show that kids learn when they feel good.
Yeah, there's no doubt that hungry kids don't learn as well as kids who have an adequate diet. I don't question that at all, but I'm saying to you that I have confidence in the school districts, the local school districts of Darke County and Miami County, to make the decision about what the menu is going to be. And right now, it's the size proportion, it's what can be sold to the students to eat. We have many, many students who are on free and reduced price lunches, and we need to be sure that it's the kind of food that they need, not the kind that Washington, D.C. thinks they need.
All right, we'll move on. Mr. Fisher, we'll start with you. Do you support right to work?
No. I don't. I passed a petition for Senate Bill 5 to repeal it. Right to work is a bad idea. It just goes down the path of what happened with Senate Bill 5. I mean, it comes back to the way Senate Bill 5 was written. It was going to be collective begging. And, what goes on a fire truck and goes on an EMT and in your schools and with your police officers, there's more to it than just than wages and benefits. I mean, these people are professionals. I am not a fireman, nor am I a police officer, nor am I a school teacher, but we have to listen to these people when they're talking to us and letting us know what their needs are. Granted, some of it, some of the wages and increases needs to be brought in line, but again, that's what collective bargaining is about.
And Mr. Adams, do you support right to work?
Yeah, I thought that was a question, right to work, not collective bargaining. Right to work is a topic that certainly this state will need to deal with. We dealt with it once before in 1958. Probably some of you may remember that. And right to work was defeated by the voters. Now, I respect the voters. I respect the majority will rule. Consequently, for right to work, and basically right to work is simply this: if you work in a union shop, you must join the union and pay the union dues. Now, if the public believes that right to work is the sort of thing that we ought to be pursuing in this state, then I think as legislators we need to listen to them, and we should not listen to them with a predetermined opinion of what ought to be done. Right to work is certainly going to come before this state, I think, in the next few years. So all of us need to become knowledgeable of what right to work means.
I've had quite a few of our constituents contact me and said they've contacted Mr. Adams' office about right to work and have not got a reply. So I'm looking at this and saying, where do you actually stand? Are you for right to work or are you against right to work? I'm telling you I'm against right to work. So where do you stand, sir?
Well, I just answered that, and I think your Democrat friends who probably who work in your campaign who said that they didn't get an answer didn't like the answer. And basically I'm saying it needs thoughtful consideration, and it in all probability once again will be something that the voters of Ohio will decide, not necessarily the voters, the 132 voters we have in the General Assembly.
Thank you. We'll start this question with Mr. Adams. Do you approve or disapprove of the practice of double dipping by elected officials?
Double dipping is taken on somewhat of a negative connotation. And if we're talking about someone who is in a job and they retire and on Friday and they start on that same job Monday, they are not only earning a salary, but they're also earning the retirement that they have already contributed to from their own salary, as well as a part of their salary that's provided by their employer. I believe that the practice of that happening is something that currently is controlled at the local level, and I have confidence in local school districts, local government, to make an informed decision about whether or not that is going to be a good idea for that community.
Mr. Fisher, do you approve or disapprove of the practice of double dipping by elected officials?
Double dipping is one of those things that, and I agree with Mr. Adams, has got a negative connotation to it. But there's been a lot of officials that have actually quit their job and then went right back to work without any kind of even opening up a job. Now, when you look at that on face value, you're saying to yourself, there's a lot of young people out there that may have some ideas and might bring something new to the table as far as government. At this point, I do not like the practice. I think at this point, if you decide to leave a job, you should leave a job. And if you want to go do something else, that's quite all right. But just to do this as far as another paycheck for your pension is wrong. And I don't know, Mr. Adams. I think you probably might be double dipping yourself. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd like to offer a rebuttal. Keep in mind that everybody who retires and goes to a different job would be affected if this would be eliminated totally. And please keep in mind that anybody who is working in the public sector and decides to retire and then return to work in the public sector, they need to be employed or elected. We have a number of individuals who have the kind of skills necessary that they may not otherwise be able to find a person. Consequently, there could be a very good reason, including financial, for them to make that practice a part of what they're doing.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. This question, we start with Mr. Fisher. What do you think about online schooling? If it would get so popular, what is it going to do to all of these new high-dollar schools being built?
I think online schooling could be a help to a student. I think we all have seen the advent of the internet and the cell phones and the texting that's going on, and that's one issue that I really have with our younger people today is their communication skills in a public setting like this. Some of them lack, and I'm trying to hire these young people. I think that online schooling just also sets them in this case. I would not trade any of my years in public school. They were great. They taught me a lot about dealing with people, talking with people, conversing, coming up with solutions to problems. I mean, the online schooling is, and again, I'm going to go back to it, it's a good help. I don't think it'd be something that we should push all our youngsters to.
Mr. Adams, what do you think about this online schooling? If it would get so popular, what is it going to do to all these new high-dollar schools being built?
Well, e-education or online learning is a technique, a procedure that educators can use and use effectively. And sometimes it's a matter of supplementing and complementing classroom or what we would think in terms of typical classroom work. So consequently, I think practiced in the right environment by individuals who have the competence to do it, it's a major asset. Now, the schools that we have in Darke County and Miami County, in fact, I've been in all of them, and for the most part, we have a lot of new schools that provide the kind of environment where online learning, the utilization of computers, has been a tremendous benefit. And as these young people graduate from high school and go to the university, they're going to find more of this. So consequently, those people who take advantage of online learning are being able to do so because we have the kind of educational environment in our schools.
Okay. We're going to move on now to Mr. Adams. We'll start with what do you think about the high-speed rail being stopped when it would have cut auto traffic and pollution, plus it would have put more people to work and would have increased economic efficiencies?
Well, if it would have done all those things, it would have been hard not to be supportive. However, unfortunately, that would not have occurred. I would be delighted to have high-speed rail that would connect me with Columbus so that I could ride the train instead of driving over there. But, you know, it would have been a matter of driving down to Dayton, the closest place I could get on, leave my car, get on the train, stop in Springfield, at least in Springfield, maybe other stops, finally get to Columbus going 45, 50 miles an hour, which I don't call high speed, and then you would get off at the depot in Columbus, and I'd be faced with getting a taxi cab or bus ride down to the State House. It just did not make sense. And frankly, if it's not a good idea, we ought to wait before we do it until it does make good sense.
Okay. Mr. Fisher, what do you think about the high-speed rail being stopped?
I think the high-speed rail was a good idea. I think it was the wrong time. At this particular point, you know, we in the state of Ohio need to look at a lot of other things as far as job creation. I'm for high-speed rail, but again, I think it was just at the wrong time, in our what was going on. I look at it. I think it's something that should be revisited. You know, Europe uses it a lot. Our infatuation with the car and high gas prices might lend to that cropping up again. I think it is an issue that I think we can look at. We need to keep it in front of us. I think at the time it was a good idea at a bad time. And you know, I would always entertain the idea of looking at high-speed rail again. But when it was proposed, I think it was just the wrong timing.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to ask the last question before we begin our 1-minute closing, so we can finish up with our last portion of the program. So this question starts with Mr. Fisher. What is your opinion of the overall redistricting in Ohio?
We need to vote yes on issue 2. There is a district in the northern part of the state that's held together by a bridge in a swamp. The gentleman that's running against, or Jim Jordan's district of the U.S. Congress, from one end of the district to the other is about 245 miles, somewhere along that line. Redistricting needs to be looked at. They need to be made fair. They need to be as balanced as possible. And there's going to be some districts that we just can't do anything about, and whichever party it is going to be on the other side of the fence. But the way things are gerrymandered now, it's a travesty. Now you're going to hear people say, well, you're going to have a board and all this other, but part of the bill is to make sure that these districts are made as fair as possible. That way we get ideas out there. The redistricting, I hope it passes. It needs to be done.
And Mr. Adams, your opinion on overall redistricting in Ohio?
I think we can improve the redistricting process, especially as it pertains to Congress. I think most people will say the Ohio House districts, the Ohio Senate districts make a lot of sense. However, the congressional districts are the one that people usually use as an example of what could be improved, and it could be improved. One of the problems is that the federal government constraints are so binding that it's very, very difficult, not only in terms of the population being almost exactly the same in each of our 16 congressional districts, but we also have the necessity of making sure by federal regs that we can have the potential for black legislators to be elected to Congress. So it's if it were not for computers, we'd have a difficult time in doing this. Moreover, I think that we need to, the appeal judges are they're involved in the start of this whole process in selecting people. They're opposed. There are others opposed. Study carefully before you vote.
Thank you. Rebuttal?
Yes. One thing we need to add to this is Mr. Husted, when he was in the House, was talking about this kind of redistricting plan. Now he's against it. To make the state balanced, fair to what it is, because when we can look at this presidential election, it's tight. We all know it's tight. But when you look at our House districts and our state House districts, our state Senate districts, they're far from being balanced. So really, and again, like Mr. Adams said, to take a good look at it.
Okay, at this point, we'll begin our 1-minute closing statements. Mr. Adams, you began the 2 minutes, so Mr. Fisher, you'll begin the 1 minute.
Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out here this evening, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters. It's always enjoyed doing this, and I enjoy running for office also. I've had the opportunity to get out to talk to a lot of people. There's a lot of things going on, and we are at a pivotal point in the state of Ohio. But I want to remind everybody, and I'm going to leave you with some numbers. 22, 20, 18, and never. Last 22 years, the state Senate's been controlled by Republicans 22 out of the last 22 years. The state House of Representatives have been controlled by the Republicans 20 out of the last 22 years. And 18 out of those 22 years, they've had the governor's office. And never in those 22 years has a Republican governor not had the state House and Senate. So you need to think about that.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Adams, your closing statement.
Well, I'm asking you to vote for me on my record in representing you in doing and undoing those things that are important to the citizens of the soon-to-be 80th District. As I look at what needs to be done in Ohio, we're on the right track, but more needs to be done. The job is not finished. We're in the process now of creating a new funding formula for schools that will facilitate the financial partnership of the state of Ohio with local communities. There's no doubt that what we have in Columbus is a legislature and a governor who are determined to create more jobs, who are determined to get rid of regulations, especially for farmers, that don't make any sense. People who are interested in making sure that we have, and I need to stop, but let me finish by saying I appreciate your vote November the 6th.
Thank you. That 1 minute does come quickly. Let's give our candidates a round of applause. Now, there were a few questions we didn't have times for, and so I would encourage you afterwards to ask them. At this point, we're going to invite Carl Jones and Alex Warner up. They are non-League of Women Voters members. Carl is going to be reading the explanation of State Issue 1 that you'll be voting on, the pros and cons, and Alex Warner reading State Issue 2, an explanation of that, and the pros and cons. So, Carl Jones, State Issue 1.
Issue 1, the question presented pursuant to Article 16, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of Ohio, required to be presented to the voters every 20 years. A yes vote means approval of holding a constitutional convention. A no vote means disapproval of holding a constitutional convention. A majority yes vote is required to hold this constitutional convention. Under the Ohio Constitution, every 20 years, voters are asked, shall there be a convention to revise, alter, or amend the Constitution? If voters decide in favor of the Constitutional Convention, the General Assembly will make provisions concerning electing delegates for a convention to revise, amend, or change the Ohio Constitution. The delegates to the Constitutional Convention may agree on amendments which must be approved by the voters before taking effect. The Constitutional Convention was last held in 1911. Proponents of holding a Constitutional Convention argue that, number 1, portions of the Ohio Constitution should be revised, and the General Assembly has not acted to revise them. Number 2, holding a Constitutional Convention will permit citizens to place amendments before the voters without the approval of the General Assembly. Opponents of holding a Constitutional Convention argue that, number 1, the Ohio General Assembly should propose revisions as recommended by the Ohio Constitutional Modernization Commission, and number 2, special interests may dominate the convention.
Thank you, Carl, for reading State Issue 1, and now Alex Warner is going to read information about State Issue 2.
Issue 2 is a proposed constitutional amendment to create a state-funded commission to draw legislative and congressional districts, and is proposed by initiative petition. The league explanation of Issue 2 is this. The amendment would create a 12-person commission to draw legislative and congressional districts. Final legislative and congressional districts are to be those that most closely meet 4 criteria: preserving whole communities, maximizing the number of competitive districts, balancing the number of districts leaning toward one party or another to closely match the state's political leaning, and finally, keeping districts compact. No map is to be adopted with intent to favor a political party, incumbent, or potential candidate. At least 7 votes would be required to approve the districts. All meetings and records would be made public. If approved, new districts would be drawn for the 2014 election. Any eligible Ohioan could apply to be a commission member. Specified elected office holders, candidates, political party officials, paid lobbyists, and public employees and family members would be ineligible. A panel of 8 state appeals court judges would accept applications and pick 42 potential members, divided evenly among Democrats, Republicans, and Ohio voters unaffiliated with either major party. The House Speaker and Minority Leader could reduce the list to 24. From that pool, a random drawing would select 3 people from each party and 3 unaffiliated members. Those 9 people would select the final 3 members, 1 from each major party and 1 unaffiliated member. Proponents of the proposed amendment argue that, 1, the proposal is a common sense reform towards fixing a broken system. 2, it would reduce the extreme partisanship that makes compromise difficult. Point 3, the drawing of congressional and legislative district lines needs to be more accountable, transparent, and balanced. And finally, 4, politicians and special interests would not be able to rig the system to their advantage. Opponents of the proposed amendment argue that, 1, redistricting should not be put in the hands of unelected bureaucrats. Point 2, commission members would not have requirements about ethics and financial disclosure and could not be removed. 3, the commission would have unlimited funding. And finally, 4, most Ohioans would be prohibited from serving on the panel based on rigid eligibility rules.
Thank you to both Carl Jones and Alex Warner for reading the information about the state issues. There are a few copies at the back for anyone who would like to take those as well. Again, we want to thank Nick Schmidt of Schmidt Videography for videotaping the evening. Please check online at Advocate 360, Blue Bag Media, County News Online, and darkjournal.com, the A, B, C, and D of our online services locally, to find out the YouTube link, and check certainly with Greenville Public Access TV for when it will, when they have their technical difficulties corrected, so it can be uploaded there. We also want to thank the American Legion for allowing the League to be here this evening, and Todd Kaiser from Bach to Rock. With all of those times that we've announced for the Darke County Board of Elections, no one has an excuse not to vote. So thank you so much for coming, and please vote November 6th. Thank you.